This is the Voice of the Voter debate with candidates for the 55th State Senate District. Samra Brook and Chris Missick will take questions submitted by the public and by reporters from WDKX, the Democrat and Chronicle, 13 WHAM News, City News, and WXXI. Here's your moderator, Evan Dawson.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's Voice of the Voter debate. I'm Evan Dawson, host of Connections on WXXI Radio, and I'll be your moderator. This debate is between the candidates for the 55th State Senate District. That district includes the towns of Rush, Mendon, Pittsford, Perrinton, Penfield, East Rochester, Irondequoit, and the east side of the city of Rochester in Monroe County. In Ontario County, it includes Victor, East Bloomfield, West Bloomfield, Richmond, Bristol, South Bristol, Canadice, and Naples. And the candidates are Democrat Samra Brook, who is also running on the Working Families Party line, and Republican Chris Missick, who is also running on the Conservative Independents and the Serve America Movement party lines. Whether you are voting in person or by mail, we want to remind you of some important dates. The deadline to apply for an absentee ballot tomorrow, October 27th, must be postmarked by that date. Early voting is now through November 1st. You can find locations and hours by contacting your county's Board of Elections by phone or going online. And Election Day is, of course, Tuesday, November 3rd. Polls will be open from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. The panelists who will be asking questions tonight are Jeremy Mole from City News, Sheila Ram from the Democrat and Chronicle, Jenny Ryan from 13 WHAM News, and Tariq Spence from WDKX Radio. They are seated in our studio, distanced from one another, and the candidates in our crew, you'll see them in just a few moments. Before we turn to the candidates for their opening remarks, we'd like to share some ground rules for this debate. Candidates will not speak out of order. They will stick to the agreed upon time limits. Candidates have 60 seconds to answer a question. Their opponent has 60 seconds to respond. The candidate asked the question originally will get a 30-second rebuttal. All other rebuttals are at my and the panelists' discretion. Opening and closing statements are 90 seconds. You can join the conversation happening on social media. Just use the hashtag #VOVdebate. So let's get started with those opening remarks. We begin with those 90-second statements, the order of which was determined by a coin toss before we went on the air. First, we will hear from Samra Brook.
Thank you, Evan. 2020 has been a difficult year for all of us. We have faced what seem to be insurmountable challenges, and yet we have seen the best of our communities. And I'm not surprised because I know our community. The 55th Senate District is a roadmap to my life. I grew up right here in the city of Rochester. I'm a proud graduate of Pittsford Mendon High School, go Vikings, and my grandparents have lived in the rural part of this district for the past 80+ years. I know the values of our community because these are the values that were instilled in me, and they are the values that drive me every day. The values of compassion, humility, and service. And now it's time that we take these values to Albany, to stand up for us, to invest in our young people, because every child, regardless of their zip code, deserves a quality education, to protect health care, because during one of the worst public health crises we've ever seen, everyone deserves to feel safe and healthy in their homes, and to rebuild our economy by supporting our small businesses and creating much-needed living wage jobs through a green economic recovery. I've spent my life serving others, fighting for quality education, combating climate change with cities, and ensuring that seniors can age in place in their homes with dignity. I'm proud of my family roots in this community, and now it's time that we send a leader to represent these roots and these values in Albany.
All right, Chris Missick, your opening remarks.
Thank you so much. While 100,000 people have been leaving this state each year, 1 million over the last decade, and caravans of U-Hauls going to places with better business climates like North Carolina, Florida, and Texas, I moved my family back here, determined to start a business. I'm a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom. I'm a lawyer, licensed to practice in California, New York, and before the Supreme Court of the United States. And as I mentioned, I'm a small business owner who, in the midst of this crisis, producing wine, donated 1,000 gallons to distill and be used as hand sanitizer for first responders. Most of all, I'm proud to be a family man. I have a beautiful son in Andrew, beautiful daughter in Audrey, and a beautiful wife, Laura. I am convinced that our problems stem from the fact not that this is a cold climate, but the business climate. The business climate in New York has driven away people. It has shrunk our tax bases. And as a result, it's decreased opportunities. I came into this race talking about taxes, jobs, crime, education, and health. But it's built upon a firm economic foundation of renewal, because I believe that the 55th Senate District in New York is a land of opportunity. We can deliver on that promise.
Thank you very much. Here's our first question tonight. It comes from Jenny Ryan from 13 WHAM News. Samra Brook will respond first.
All right, thank you, Evan, and welcome to both of you. You both alluded to the challenging times we are in, and no doubt the challenging times that New York State faces. By some estimates, we face a deficit of $59 billion. Ms. Brook, if elected, what would be the first thing you would do to increase state revenue, and what would be the last thing that you would cut?
Thank you, Jenny. I think it's important that we look at what a budget is. A budget is essentially a statement of our values, right? And it gets to show us what we prioritize as a state and as a country, because that's where we put our dollars. And so when we think about facing such a deficit in the state budget, we need to think about the things that can't be on the chopping block. Certainly, it's the time where we need to be investing in our young people and investing in healthcare. And those are things that we can't cut at this moment. I think there are ways we can grow revenue for the state. One of those is finally having a more equitable tax structure, which allows us to have the 120 billionaires in New York State pay their fair share, just a little bit more, just to make sure that students can continue to go to school and be healthy and get the education they need, just to make sure that people have access to the healthcare that they need.
All right, thank you very much. Chris Missick.
Thank you. As a business owner, I understand what it means to meet a budget, to have expenses that you can't quite figure out how to pay for. It's why, first and foremost, I say we need the federal government to step in to help with some of our budget shortfall caused by COVID-19, not caused by mismanagement, though. You know, there are a lot of things this state does. For instance, almost $500 million to Hollywood in tax credits. $42 million to Saturday Night Live alone. We have publicly funded campaigns on the horizon of another $100 million. And we have $8 billion in an Economic Development Council, a whole program. Some of that goes to crony slush funds. What I would say is this: we cut the Hollywood tax credits. We don't fund publicly funded campaigns. And we put a temporary hold on the economic development schemes this state currently has. I believe I have a better solution I'll bring up. That would free up close to $9 billion. We're getting there. I will not cut education. I will not cut health care. And we need to grow our economy if we're going to pay for these things.
And I just want to make sure we get 30 seconds for a follow-up. And your opponent mentioned what he would not cut. Part of Jenny Ryan's question was, is there anything that you would say that is not going to be on the table under any circumstances?
Yeah, I think that's where I started, healthcare and education. They're the top things that we invest in as a state, and they're the top two things that we certainly need to be investing in. You know, when I think about the 55th Senate District, before COVID-19 hit, we were owed over $100 million in funding just for an equitable, sound basic education, which is a promise according to the New York State Constitution. So I think we cannot go back on that dedication and that commitment to our young people. And most of all, we've got to keep people safe during this pandemic.
And I've got one follow-up to Jenny's question. I'll start with Samra. Both will have a chance to answer this. One proposal to raise revenue in the state does involve legalizing marijuana, could be part of an upcoming budget. Would you support that if you're elected? Why and why not?
Yeah, I think legalizing marijuana is a really good opportunity for us to drive revenue for the state. And here's the thing, this isn't a radical idea anymore. 11 states have already legalized marijuana and the District of Columbia. So not only does it allow us to drive much needed revenue, we're all talking about the state deficit, it's going to allow us to bring in new revenue for the state, but it's also gives us an opportunity to invest in the communities that have been ravaged by the illegalization of marijuana, which, by the way, are many of the same low-income and black and brown communities that have also disproportionately had negative effects of COVID-19. And I see that as an amazing opportunity that we should do thoughtfully and safely to make sure that we can drive more revenue and invest in our communities.
Chris Missick, same question.
Thank you. My opponent recognizes there are other states that have legalized marijuana. And many of those has set really outstanding goals for what would come into the budget coffers, and they were never met. Additionally, legalizing marijuana sets up a large bureaucratic regulatory scheme in Albany, and poor people and minorities still end up in jail for selling marijuana because it goes to the cronies. It goes to people who can pay for these really expensive licenses. I'd say, one, we need to focus on making sure that if it's available, it's for medical purposes. Two, we need to ensure that there is some sort of, similar to a DWI, rapid test in case anyone is inebriated while driving. Three, if we're going to go that direction, treat it like onions. Let people produce a small amount. Let's not have commerce totally involved in that. And let's make sure people aren't going to jail for it.
The next question tonight comes from Sheila Ram at the Democrat and Chronicle, and Chris Missick will respond to this one first.
Thank you. Good evening. Mr. Missick, what relief should the state provide tenants facing eviction and landlords facing rent deficits due to the impact of the coronavirus?
Thank you so much. We really do have two folks with the same goal, to keep people housed. I think that when we talk about landlords, so often we think of really large-scale apartment complexes, maybe in New York City. We're not thinking about the mom and pop in town that have an extra home or a townhouse that they're trying to rent. If they aren't adequately compensated, how are they going to pay their property taxes? How are they going to pay for repairs? How are they going to fix the heating? Too much of this conversation doesn't understand how market economics works and imagines that there's an endless piggy bank in Albany. With that said, we need to make sure that through this crisis, those folks, and the governor has already done this, don't get pushed out of their homes in winter. But we cannot, we must not, let people who have a small business, making sure someone has the dignity of a roof over their head, unable to keep that in operation. What I'm worried about is so much of the legislation that has been proposed on this issue isn't about COVID. It's about long-term structural changes that will ultimately reduce the housing supply, increase the price of rent.
Thank you, Mr. Missick.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Brook.
Yeah, you know, this issue has taken on a whole new meaning as we sit here in a global pandemic, right? We were told to shelter in place for months, and yet there were people who didn't have a shelter to stay in place. And I think what it comes down to is, do we believe, as New Yorkers, that housing is a human right and that everyone should be able to afford a stable home where they can stay safe and healthy, especially during this time? And so we've looked at certain measures that we've taken, things like a moratorium on eviction, things like delaying mortgage and rent payments, and I think that we're in the right direction here. But what we have to remember is, when we think about this eviction moratorium, we're kicking the can down the road. Unfortunately, we're seeing surges again of COVID-19, and what we can't afford is, when my health is dependent on your health and your health is dependent on mine, to have people kicked out in the streets because they can't not pay their rent or their mortgage. I think we do need to look at the systemic underlying issues of why we find ourselves in this situation and continue to support people so that they can stay at home, they can stay safe, and they can stay healthy. And that does include continuing to put a moratorium on evictions, and it does include being able to delay and forgive both mortgage payments and rent payments.
Mr. Missick, a response if you want.
Yeah, we've heard our governor say that we are a compassionate state. But again, the compassion needs to ensure that our small businesses, our landlords, can stay operational. We have to understand that without the property tax revenues that come from them collecting rent and paying it, we're going to find ourselves in a worse situation. We must understand this is a temporary crisis. We cannot institute legislation, as the Democratic majority wants to, that's going to leave us even worse off in the future. We simply don't have that option.
We move now to Jeremy Mole from City News. With the next question, Samra Brook will respond first.
Daniel Prude's death at the hands of law enforcement reignited activist calls to defund police departments and redirect money from their budgets to community services. Does the role of police in our communities need to change, and how do you see yourself, if elected senator, fitting into discussions about policing?
I have to start, as I do always in response to this question, which is Daniel Prude should be alive today. And our systems failed him. Multiple systems failed Daniel Prude. And my condolences and my heart goes out to his family. Having said that, I think what we've seen is that, first of all, I believe that a state government and local government has a responsibility and an obligation to invest in public safety. Because the truth is, we all want to feel safe in our communities. Our kids want to feel safe going to the playground. My husband wants to feel safe going for a jog in the morning. I want to feel safe walking around my neighborhood. And therefore, we have to make the investments in public safety. I do think law enforcement is a key part of public safety. I also believe that when we look at the past few decades in New York State, we have siphoned money away from our mental health institutions. Our mental health professionals are not showing up to people who are in mental health crisis. So certainly it is a moment for us to reflect and to see what more can we do? Where else can we invest to make sure that we all feel safe and stable in our communities?
Mr. Missick.
Thank you. I'm proud to stand with our law enforcement. I will not defund the police. I believe that this is an issue that requires addition, not subtraction. Should we have mental health professionals on hand with our law enforcement officers? Absolutely. Should we institute reforms so that if an instance as terrible as it is, like Daniel Prude's death, happens again, should we have an instance where they go before a grand jury? Absolutely. I've proposed all these things. Just because you support law enforcement doesn't mean you don't support reforms. But I still have never heard an answer whether or not my opponent supports defunding the police. I don't. Again, this is about addition, not subtraction.
All right, we'll offer a response. Ms. Brook?
Yeah, I would like to, because I think it is important that people understand where I stand and where I think investments should be made in our communities. You know, again, I said it, but I can repeat it. Let's look at the situation we were in. What we were in is that when someone was in crisis and they dialed 911, our systems did not have the right professionals to meet them where they were in that crisis. We didn't have mental health professionals who have a culturally relevant background, who know how to de-escalate situations. I think about my own family. There's a lot of nurses in my family, including my aunt who's a psychiatric nurse, and I've heard stories of how she's able to de-escalate based on a very specialized training and clinic that she does. And I think that that's where we need to look at making further investments to make sure, again, that we don't have to have this conversation again and that we don't deal with a tragedy like we saw with Daniel Prude.
Okay, does that answer your question, Chris Missick?
It answers the question. I'd be happy to provide an extra comment. You know, I've had a chance to speak with everyone from hospital administrators to mental health therapists and my own experience of my mother-in-law being a nurse. This is why I think the defund the police argument is frankly dangerous, because it moves us in a direction that isn't actually talking about the solutions. It's sloganeering more than anything else. I agree. We need more mental health. We need more wraparound services. We need more folks who understand what people in the community are experiencing. But pitting folks against one another, that's not the way to do it. We've got to unite this community. And we're only going to do that by supporting those who prevent that line of chaos or destruction in our community and people who are living in the community. We do that with additional services. We do that with wraparound services and good policy.
And to be fair, if you want a brief response, you can have it. Go ahead.
You know, I think I've answered this question. I think folks are very clear on where I think investments should lie. And if you have any other questions, you can go to questions@somerforsenate.com.
All right, Tariq Spence from WDKX. The next question, Chris Missick will respond first.
I just wanted to know, I spoke to somebody earlier who made a line about health care, and they said that you shouldn't have to be penalized for being sick. And with healthcare crisis going on right now, it's the biggest issue facing people with prices going up and the services not matching that. What is your plan day one to fight for healthcare cost issues going on in this country?
So I'm not skirting the question. My plan day one is to ensure that the legislature has a voice in this. As long as we sit under the governor's extraordinary authority that was put in place last March, the governor has carte blanche to do as he sees fit. It's almost like the legislature doesn't need to weigh in. I think once we move past that, and hopefully in January that will be revoked when I am in the Senate, then we can start to talk about the real solutions. You know, in particular, we're going to need help from the federal government. In particular, we do need Medicaid reform in this state, Medicare reform. What I think we need to understand, though, is we need to embrace that 3% of people that don't have any options for health care. We need to get them covered. And one of the things that I've proposed is a doubling of the earned income tax credit for these folks. So they have a place that they can put those funds right into the marketplace and ensure that they get the health coverage they need. Healthcare is among the most important things in our life, and we need to make sure that we're providing it to the people of this state. We just need to make sure we're paying for it.
Ms. Brook?
Yeah, just as I said, housing is a human right. I do believe that healthcare and quality healthcare is a human right. And when I think about, all the statistics and data points that you generally hear around this issue, for me, it's all about the stories. It's about the story of sitting with my grandfather, who's 85 now, down in Bloomfield, worked for decades for Kodak, was a coach, a community volunteer, and now he's trying to live out his years down in Bloomfield in the home where my mother grew up in. And I sat with him a few months ago, and he explained to me that he was making a decision between paying for his healthcare medication and a car payment. I'm tired of hearing stories like that. We cannot be a state that says after you have done everything right, you have built up your community, you have given back, and you will sit there and have to make tough decisions about whether or not you can afford life or death prescription drugs. And so our state has an obligation, and that's to make sure that everyone has access to quality health care.
Does that mean through a single-payer system?
Right now, yes, that's a great option to make sure. And, I think it's important to mention, we hear this 3% statistic. My grandfather counts as an insured individual. How many people, if we had a full room right here, you'd see hands popping up about who has delayed medical care, who hasn't taken care of a comorbidity and now is at greater risk of COVID-19 because they can't afford the care that they already have. And to me, that's unconscionable. And I think we've got to do better, especially during a public health crisis.
All right, 30 seconds, Chris Missick.
Yeah, I agree we do need to do better, but doing better by instituting single-payer health care in New York State, which best estimates are will cost $140 billion, $50 billion more than our current budget. It's just not going to work. I've heard simple answers to simple problems, but when you get a simple answer to a complex problem like this, you need to think about the long-term consequences. I too care about my neighbors, my family, our communities, people who are making tough decisions. I think that we can find ways to fix that. And we are, at the federal level, trying to address prescription health care costs. We can bring that down, but we can also bring it down as a state if we are able to buy in bulk. So there are creative ways to go about this, not just single-stroke large bills that will further bankrupt the state and hurt our economy.
All right, we turn back now to Ginny Ryan from 13 WHAM News. Our next question, we'll have Samra Brook responding first.
New York State has been ranked one of the worst in the country for its economic outlook. Record number of people are leaving our state every day. What would you do to turn this situation around?
Great, thank you. Well, first of all, let's talk about the moment that we're in, right? And I have to say, when COVID-19 hit, we changed the way we were reaching out to voters and instead started talking to folks about how do we help you get the resources you need? How do we match you with, programs at the county or city or state level or federal level that you might need? And I remember one conversation that I had with a woman who was a small business owner here in the city of Rochester and a mother, and she said it perfectly. She said, you can tell the people who created these programs like the PPP program have never owned a small business. They don't understand that when you don't have a huge financial team, when you're now supposed to help your child with remote learning, when you're dealing with potentially laying off people who you care about, who are your neighbors, that you don't have the resources to navigate these complex systems. So I think, first of all, our state has to do a better job of supporting our local and small businesses. That's partially why I'm incredibly proud to have earned the endorsement of the Rochester Chamber of Commerce, because we need to work together for this. And I think making sure that our programs are actually catered and easily navigable by small businesses locally is crucial. And I also think we need to look at how we maintain and make sure that the bottom does not fall out for our small businesses.
Mr. Missick.
Thank you. It is unfortunate that the Rochester Chamber of Commerce has become a political arm of Albany. I was happy to accept the endorsement of the NFIB, the nation's largest small business organization. And through that, I was able to have many conversations. PPP was really bumpy, but ultimately, it's saved a lot of businesses. And I think we probably need another program just like that on the federal level. The question about how I'm going to help revive our economy stems from, I think, a really interesting, exciting idea. It is the creation of a state infrastructure bank. First and foremost, infrastructure investment, every $1 billion, creates 18,000 jobs. Creating an infrastructure bank that is public and private, chartered with a broad scope that includes everything from roads and bridges, wastewater, even affordable housing and broadband and telecommunication lines. This will be a starting point for us to have the real investment. I believe first and foremost that we need to reshore American manufacturing. I want to see more Made in America and Made in New York provisions for our state budget. This will provide a market, and it'll provide an attractive magnet to bring these jobs. Within this bank, we will establish empowerment zones in both rural and urban distressed areas. This will focus on establishing the infrastructure to attract these businesses. Business will provide us a way out of our budget problems.
And Ms. Brook, 30 seconds.
You know, all I'll add is, you know, when I talked at the top about the green economic recovery, I do think that that is an incredible way that we can rebuild ourselves out of the deficit that we find ourselves in. And the reason I say that is because not only is this going to invest in our communities, but it's also going to bring new jobs, green jobs. The Western New York and the Rochester region could be at the forefront of clean technology and renewable energy. And by being able to be at the forefront, we can bring those jobs, we can train folks so that they're having living wage jobs. That again goes back to supporting our communities, creating stable communities, and dealing with a lot of the other issues that we've seen as well.
And a brief response if you wanted it there.
I was thrilled to get the endorsement of the New York League of Conservation Voters, in part because of my emphasis on creating additional technology focused around battery power. This is how we turn renewable energy into something we can use for economic development.
Well, because this is the Voice of the Voter debate, we asked you, the voters, to submit questions. You've been doing that tonight. Here is the first one, and we will address it to Chris Missick to respond first. And this comes from Rochester Police Locust Club President Mike Mazzio, who is watching. He asks, do you support the rights of union workers? Do you support union workers who are police officers? And why? Chris Missick first.
Absolutely. I've been honored to receive a wide array of union endorsements. Pretty unique to have somebody who's a Republican, also many other parties under my name, have union support such as our great law enforcement officers, plumbers and pipe fitters, iron workers, laborers. It's because I understand the dignity of work. I understand that even in business, oftentimes there is not equitable bargaining power between employees and employers. Unions provide an important safeguard to ensure that members' rights and workers' rights help them attain a living wage. So, of course, I think one of the saddest things over the last few months has been a lot of the negative comments about unions and police agencies. I think it's an important part of protecting worker rights, and I think it's an important part for law enforcement as well.
Ms. Brook.
I'm a huge supporter of our union organizations and our labor organizations here locally. And I've shown that support, whether it is on strike lines with the UAW, whether it was fighting cuts with the teachers union. And I'm proud to hold a lot of those endorsements, like the two I just mentioned, along with others, like the Building Trades Council, like the New York Nurses Association. And that's because we are a union family. I myself have benefited from collective bargaining. My father was a union member. My mother was a 30-plus year NYSET member, a proud public school teacher here in the 55th District. And the truth is, working families are the backbone of our communities. And we have to do everything we can to not only protect them, but to make sure that they have fair wage laws and fair wages.
Are police unions included in your list of union support?
Absolutely. All unions having collective bargaining is an important piece of it.
All right, 30 seconds to respond if you want it. Chris Missick.
Thank you. My dad has a union plumbing company. We value unions in our family. But when it came time to ask for Mr. Mazzio's endorsement in the Locust Club, my opponent didn't even bother to knock on the door. I think there is a disconnect between understanding what our law enforcement does for our community and their value as a union, when you won't even simply ask.
Well, let's ask about that. 30 seconds if you want to take it. Go ahead.
It's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Next question comes from Ginny in Fairport, not Ginny Ryan. This is Ginny in Fairport, and I will read it now. Samra Brook will respond first. Ginny asks, This is a legitimate set of questions to understand the candidate's judgment and decision making. Did you vote for Donald Trump in 2016? Do you plan on voting for him in 2020? And if so, why do you believe he is the right choice to lead this country? Now, in the interest of fairness, we can guess that Samara Brook did not vote for Donald Trump in 2016, will not vote for him in 2020. So I will start by asking Ms. Brook, did you support Joe Biden in the Democratic primary? And if not, why did you think there were better choices to lead the country?
Is that the full question from Ginny?
I'm adding to Ginny because you can surprise us if you voted for Donald Trump in 2016 or 2020.
No surprise there. I did not vote for Donald Trump in 2016, and I do not plan on voting for him in 2020. I think that Donald Trump has been one of the most dangerous people to ever have in power in our country. And not just because some of the policies, but also just the divisiveness and the fear that he has created. I have my own father is an immigrant, and I have immigrant friends who fear for their lives. They fear that they can't stay with their families and go on to do the productive lives that they've come to love. So I do hope that we have a new president starting November 4th, if we can get all our ballots counted in 2020. And, for me right now, the most important thing is to make sure that Joe Biden gets all of the support that we can muster for him. And I'm going to give a message to all the voters. I know that there's a lot of people, especially young people, who he may have not been your first choice, but he's here now. He's our Democratic leader, and he is the only thing that stands between us and another 4 years of Donald Trump. So I would urge you to get out and vote, whether it's absentee, early voting, or November 3rd, and make sure your voice is heard and that we close this chapter in America's history. All
right, Chris Missick, we'll allow you to respond now. Go ahead.
Thank you. I agree that the national environment is too divisive. It's why I've said throughout this race that this seat in this state, this is about your house, not the White House. I think my position is a little complicated because I have so many different parties supporting me. And in fact, on the way here in Fairport today, leaving our campaign office, I actually saw a Biden-Missick sign right next to each other. I have the Independence Party, who's running Brock Pierce. Obviously, Joe Biden's candidate for Democrats, Donald Trump for Republicans, and I have a lot of libertarian supporters who are standing with Joe Jorgensen. It's a complicated question. I did vote for Ted Cruz in the primary in 2016, and I did vote for the president. I'm a Republican in 2016, like a lot of folks. That's why he's president today. I, too, don't like the way his temperament is. I don't like some of the fighting, but I always know that he didn't make the wave, he's ridden it. We need to move past this era of divisiveness, and we need to stop putting national politics in a seat where so much is at stake locally.
Okay.
So
you can finish your point. Go ahead.
Yeah. So where we stand today, I'm still making my decision. But most of all, I'm trying not to alienate a number of my voters on an issue that impacts their lives a lot less than this race will.
So you're an undecided voter at this point?
You want to know this? The math I'm doing is this, Evan. Joe Jorgensen is running as the Libertarian candidate. If the Libertarian Party doesn't get enough votes, they won't be a viable third-party ticket in this state. I think it's important because though there are a lot of things in that party I disagree with, they provide a valuable source of additional input in state politics and in debate generally. So I'm weighing it. I'll let you know.
And by the rules, if you want 30 seconds, you've got it right here.
I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, for those of you who may have tuned in late, this is the Voice of the Voter debate with the candidates for the 55th State Senate District. I'm Evan Dawson. And the Voice of the Voter is a partnership among the Democrat and Chronicle, WDKX, 13 WHAM News, City News, and WXXI. A reminder that you can join the conversation on social media using the hashtag #VOVDebate. Our next question comes from Sheila Ram from the Democrat and Chronicle. Chris Missick will respond first.
What is your position on how foundation aid funding should be distributed going forward, particularly in view of the impact of the coronavirus on in-person learning?
Thank you. I've had the opportunity recently to sit with a fair number of teachers and education specialists. The one thing that I always come away with is this: we are not getting our fair share in upstate. Now, I know that before the Democratic majority took control, we were receiving an average of 5% increases each year. 2018, that decreased to 0.2%. Why? More money went to New York City. I think that one of the things we need to do is advocate more for upstate. We need to make sure that the Democrats in Albany understand that it's not simply a matter of trying to buy our vote. You know, rhetorical bribery and political just corruption isn't going to get us there. We need to make sure that we get what we deserve, that it doesn't flow just to New York City, that it comes back to our district. I'm going to be an advocate for independent school districts, for our education. My own son has had to go through early intervention. He's in the Victor School District. I know how important it is. It hits me personally. I'll be a fierce advocate.
Thank you. Ms. Brook.
I think I mentioned it earlier, but before, just so we all understand, before COVID-19 hit, the schools within the 55th Senate District were owed well over $100 million in equitable funding. I personally understand the importance of having that funding for our schools. I am a public school graduate. I attended RCSD and I have attended our suburban schools, and I am proud to be a public school graduate. I'm the daughter of an educator who was a public school teacher and administrator for most of my life. And more than that, I've seen the power of our public education institutions. My own father came here from Ethiopia during a civil war and was able to finish his schooling by attending our local SUNY schools to become a civil engineer. This is a top priority. It's something that I talk about in every room that I'm in, and it's that we have not gotten our fair share, and that's largely because we don't have a voice in that Democratic majority. We don't have a seat at the table right now for both the city of Rochester and our surrounding suburbs and down in Ontario County. We need someone who can not only go with the enthusiasm and energy to fight for our public schools, but who also can get it done and bring those resources back to the 55th District.
I want to expand on this with a question. I'll start with Chris Missick as a follow-up to Sheila's question. With Rochester City Schools being the lowest performing of the Big Five districts in the state, and with the district facing what's been reported at up to $100 million deficit, hard to say exactly, but it's a big number, and with its special education program undergoing scrutiny, would you support legislation approving mayoral control of the district, or is there another form of state intervention that you want to see? This has been debated very heavily in this community. If you're elected to the state Senate, how do you feel about these issues? I'll start with Mr. Missick.
Thank you so much, Evan. I want to start with the corruption in Albany of if you're not at my party, you don't get your fair share. That's what people hate about that city and the politics in this state. That's why we need term limits. That's why we need political reforms. And with regard to RCSD, it's a tragedy for those children, for their futures. Even as a Republican, I'm not afraid to spend money where it will make a difference. But putting additional money into RCSD right now with the administrative bloat that they have doesn't seem wise when we have good examples of what works in Rochester. Places like School Without Walls, East High, community schools, and charter schools. You know, I don't think we should be putting money down a hole where no one can account for where it goes. I also don't think that this is necessarily the time for the mayor to take control. But I do think we need to reimagine how we're treating education within RCSD. We need to look at the viable options. We need to look at additional trade training. And we need to understand that this isn't a bottomless pit. The issues need to be addressed. If I lost $30 million, $100 million, I wouldn't go ask for more. We'd have to figure it out.
Okay. Ms. Brook.
Just about 25 years ago, my family had to make the tough choice of leaving my neighborhood school to something that we thought would be a better option for me, to have a more well-funded school, to make sure that I could go off into the career that I had hoped. I was in elementary school when I had to make that decision. What really, really disappoints me is that the hard decision that my young parents had to make for me and for my two brothers is the same decision that young families are making throughout the city of Rochester. We cannot force our families to be making these decisions to rip young people out of their communities just to get an educational opportunity. And that's why we've got to be able to make the investments in our young people. It's the one thing that we know gives us a return. Investing in young people so they graduate, so they have the education they need, gives us a more productive workforce, and eventually, again, creates more stable communities. And that's why I think it's so important that we do increase investment and that we continue to let community members have a say in that.
Okay, guarding against cuts, increasing investment, but not necessarily mayoral control or Albany control? Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, let's turn now. The next question coming from Jeremy Mole from City News. Samra Brook will respond first to this one.
Both of you have acknowledged that climate change, or the effects of climate change, that climate change is real and the effects are being felt throughout your district, or throughout the 55th district. What should the state be doing to address climate disruption, either beyond what it's already doing or in place of what it is already doing?
Thank you. This one, I love this question. When I returned from the Peace Corps, where I worked in rural Guatemala on health education, public health initiatives, the first thing I did when I came back to the States was actually go into working on climate change. And it was a lot because I saw what it looked like when our local governments don't help us build the right infrastructure for climate change, for waste management, and so on. And so when I came back to the States, I thought it would be really crucial to see how we can have our local and state governments do a better job of helping build the infrastructure that we need, and quite honestly, to make it easier for people to do the right thing, especially around things like recycling and diverting waste. I'm happy and I'm proud of New York State for finally passing the CLCPA, which is a tremendous piece of legislation to help go towards 100% renewable energy, to reinvest, as I've said multiple times, to reinvest in communities that are disproportionately negatively affected by climate change. Now it's time to put legislation behind this act and to actually put the dollars behind it so that we can achieve these ambitious goals. Because here's the thing, folks. This crisis has existed for decades. It's not going away. We might not even be able to stop it yet, but we can certainly slow it down. We can certainly invest here locally and really create our own green job, clean technology hub here in Rochester.
Chris Missick.
Thank you. I have been an advocate for protecting our environment. And when I was deployed in Korea with Operation Iraqi Freedom, I saw a lot of examples of countries that were doing things that I couldn't believe. Now, I've been an advocate when it came to stopping the LPG storage in the salt caverns on Seneca Lake, in the trash incinerators on Seneca Lake, and in the trash trains coming from New York City. When it comes to how we fix this, it's all about making sure that we understand that this is a global crisis. And what we do in New York State is important, but it's why I talk about reshoring manufacturing. China has built a coal plant a day for the last 10 years. By bringing manufacturing back to the United States, and in particular New York, where we have much better environmental controls and can continue to increase those controls, well then, we'll be one step closer to a true global solution to climate change.
Okay. And 30 seconds if you want it, Ms. Brook.
It's okay, thank you.
Okay, let's go to Tariq Spence from WDKX for the next question. Chris Missick will answer first.
I just wanted to give an opportunity during this debate to talk to local business owners, landlords who are not trying to lose their homes because people cannot pay the rent, and also people who are working part-time jobs. What would you say to them face-to-face in this sort of situation that will help them get through to 2021 and beyond?
Yeah. This has been a really hard time. I know, because I went through the experience where I had to lay some of my employees off at the start of the crisis. I knew that there wouldn't be cash flow. And I knew that our unemployment program was their only option. I also knew that we were looking at expanding that and ensuring that they had a buffer. I believe the federal government should step in with perhaps another stimulus to help folks who are teetering on the edge. I would tell you, don't lose hope. This is a time to fortify your knowledge, your skills, your strengths. I've been through tough times myself. When I was a kid, my dad's business went bankrupt. We lost everything. We had to move from our prototypical middle-class home to a small rented house where we weren't sure if we could make the payment each month and really never even got pizza on a Friday night. America is a land of opportunity, though. New York can be a land of opportunity, too. Hold your head up high, think clearly, work hard, develop your skill sets. You can get there because the opportunity exists. But I'll tell you, if we don't change the way we're managing this state, those opportunities will not exist here.
Thank you. Samra Brook.
This year has been incredibly difficult for nearly everyone. We have faced things that we could have never guessed we would face. Truly, there's no way to prepare in many ways, especially individuals, for what we were facing. But here's the thing. What we're seeing with COVID-19 is a direct reflection of broken policies that do not center working people when they're making these considerations. This is what happens when we have a government that isn't serving the people it's supposed to serve. When our federal government was quicker to bail out big corporations than it was to say, let me help this mom and pop shop stay open. Let me help them make sure that they don't have to pay rent this month and we'll help them out the next month. This is what happens when our policies do not reflect our values. And that's why we have to send a working families champion to the state Senate. That's why we have to send someone who is rooted in these experiences and in our communities to make sure that we have someone who can not only fight for us, but also deliver for us.
And 30 seconds if you want it, Mr. Missick.
The problem is the Working Families Party doesn't provide solutions that will expand our economy. They do offer things that sound and feel great. This isn't anything about the ideas personally. We come at it from a different viewpoint. The fact is, we relied on folks in this state to help take care of us. And the unemployment lines, my God, that was awful. Folks are still waiting from March. So our state has a lot of work to do. This is another area where I say it's your house, not the White House. State elections matter. Local issues matter. And you need people who know business, who know leadership, and who know organization.
All right, we're going to try to get through as many citizens' questions as we can. We'll try to move as fast as we can here. One's coming in from David in Bloomfield. Summer Brook will respond first. David asks, where do you stand on the Second Amendment? Ms. Brook.
The Second Amendment, I'm great with it. And I also think that, you know, New York State has done a phenomenal job of making sure that we have common sense gun safety laws. And even my own family members who are hunters and have their rifles at home, we all agree that we want to see common sense gun safety laws. And that's why I'm proud to have the endorsement of organizations who've done incredible work in this vein, like Moms Demand Action or New Yorkers Against Gun Violence. And I'd like to make sure that we keep those strong common sense gun safety laws in New York State.
Chris Missick.
I believe the Second Amendment is a civil right. I believe that the right to bear arms is ingrained in us as an American people. I disagree with my opponent in our previous forum where she said the SAFE Act was a good start. I think that we spend too much time talking strictly about new gun laws in this state and not about those laws in place which allow guns to continue on our streets. For instance, bail reform, where we can arrest somebody for illegal possession of a firearm. They're booked and they're back on the street the same day with those same supply chains. We need to lock those things down. We need to stop those supply chains of illegal guns. And at the end of the day, we need to recognize that it is a civil right.
We're going to get to bail reform in a second, but Ms. Brook, just briefly, are there specific proposals that you'd vote for regarding gun laws in Albany if you're elected?
I think the one, again, I do stand by my statement. I do think that New York State has some of the strongest common sense gun laws on the books, but certainly there are things like untraceable ghost guns that we talk about now and making sure that those don't end up on our streets and in the hands of our young people. And I think that that's another really important piece of legislation that we should think about moving forward.
Well, and I want to address an issue that a number of community members and viewers have asked us to address tonight. It does involve bail reform in a sense. It involves a door handle flyer expressing opposition to Summer Brook's campaign. You're taking a look at it. It says, quote, "Sorry I missed you. I will call again," end quote, and features a picture of Taekwon Rivera, who shot a Rochester police officer in 2009 when he was 14 years old. The flyer then says, quote, "Thanks to Summer Brook's bail reform plan, I could visit you," end quote. And I would say, I don't know who paid for this. It doesn't indicate on the flyer. So, Mr. Missick, if you want to address, I don't know if your campaign endorses it and the message. Can you tell me, did it come from the campaign? Do you endorse the message? And what are your thoughts on bail reform and the message in that flyer?
Yeah, so I will say, I mean, listen, it is the message I've been trying to bring, that this is dangerous, that we've had a 55% increase in crime. And I imagine some overzealous members of the community who support me wanted to prove a point. But I do know that a lot of this started with the negative campaigns that came out from my opponent. Hundreds of thousands of dollars from New York City funneled into negative mailing, attacking not my issues, but attacking me personally, my 3-year-old son, my family business. All blatant lies. You know, she accused me of having a trust fund. I don't. She accused me of inherited wealth. Never inherited a penny. She accused my business of being an environmental disaster because a well tested positive for coliform. I just had to look at that and say, you don't understand rural life, because that happens and it gets fixed. That's not a problem.
Let me offer a minute to respond. Go ahead.
Well, there's a lot. Only 1 minute, Evan? Okay. Well, let me start with this. You know, I talk a lot about bringing folks together, and I think that that's really important. And not just for this campaign. That's really been a mandate my entire life. You know, when you grow up in the city of Rochester, and yet you've got this experience of living in the suburbs, which is different, and then you spend every weekend going to church and your cousin's basketball games in Bloomfield, in a more rural part of the district, you learn a lot about how to bring people together, even across geographies, even across political ideologies, incomes, professions. And it's been really important to me that I do the same throughout this campaign and reach out to people to talk about the issues that matter to them. And the issues that I hear from voters, whether they're farmers, whether they're small business owners, whether they're single mothers, it's that they want investment in education so that our young people are taken care of and can thrive. And it's that they want to make sure that they can stay healthy during a public health crisis, which is why we have to invest in healthcare.
And we have reached the time for closing statements. Each candidate has 90 seconds to deliver a final statement. The order, of course, determined by a coin toss before we went on air. Chris Missick will start this round. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. You know, I started this by saying this is about your house, not the White House. But it is about Albany. It is about corruption. It is about a governor with executive authority that is so extraordinary that it almost makes it feel like whether you vote or not for a state legislator, it doesn't matter. And that's why you need someone who does have common sense, business experience, who has a family, who pays property taxes in this district, and who has been here for the last 10 years and not in New York City. I've signed the front of paychecks, I've tried to employ people, and I've done my best job. You know, when the legislator is not legislating, you simply don't have a voice to impact policy. So what I am about, it's about renewal. It's about renewal of your opportunities in this state, renewal of business opportunities, renewal of family opportunities, a reinstatement of dignity, and a discussion of issues, not personal attacks. Truth sometimes can be inconvenient, but at the end of the day, it has to be about policy and not family.
Samra Brook, 90 seconds.
Folks, this is the most consequential election in many of our lifetimes. So I say let's send a resounding message, not just across the state, but across the country, that ours is a community that believes in ourselves. We believe in more unity, not division. We believe that young people deserve the investment in them. We believe that regardless of where you live or your income, you deserve quality health care, especially in the midst of a global health pandemic. We believe that together we can rebuild our economy that is stronger and smarter than it was before. But we can't do this without electing leaders who agree with our beliefs, who will fight for our values, and make sure that our voices are heard and that we have a seat at the table to bring back the resources for our community so that we not only survive, but thrive. That's why I'm asking for your vote on November 3rd. You have my commitment. I will fight and advocate for everyone in the 55th District, from Rochester to Pittsford to Irondequoit to Naples. This district can do so much more when we work together. That's why I got into this race. That's why I look forward to being your state senator.
Thank you very much to both. That concludes tonight's Voice of the Voter debate with the candidates for the 55th State Senate District. Democrat Samra Brook, Republican Chris Missick. Thank you to the candidates for taking part. Thank you to those of you who submitted questions. And thank you to our panelists tonight, Jeremy Mole from City News Sheila Rayam from the Democrat and Chronicle, Jenny Ryan of 13 Wham News, and Tariq Spence of WDKX. A reminder that early voting is now through November 1st. You can also vote by mail or head to the polls on Election Day. That's November 3rd, of course. All the information you need is available through the county's Board of Election, whatever county you live in. I'm Evan Dawson from WXXI News. Thanks for watching. Good night.